Uber drivers, what's the deepest secrets you've overheard in your car? I picked up this young overly affectionate couple that spent the entire trip making out in my backseat and telling each other that they loved each other. Cute. So I drop off the couple and head on my way to pick up my text fare. I hear a cell phone ring in my backseat, realize it's my previous ride's, and pick up the phone to let them know I have it and I'll come back to drop it off. Turns out it was the guy's wife phoning to check in on him while he was on a business trip, which he was thoroughly enjoying with his mistress. Former Uber driver here. Picked a girl up, a sweet girl from a bar on a Wednesday night, absolutely hammered. About 10 p.m. she got into my car, apologized for being so drunk and politely asked if we could just drive around a little while, with the windows down. I was prepping for a cleaning fee, trying to drive and pull a vomit bag out of the glove box, but no, she just did that airplane thing with one hand out the backseat window. She asked me if I had ever thought about dying, to which I replied, yeah, I guess so. That's when she told me that she had cancer. It was in her brain and it was too far gone to consider chemo. I remember my heart just pounding. She told me she was dying and she was going to be okay. Tonight she was celebrating with her work friends who threw her a going away party. She told them she was taking a position abroad. I just didn't tell them that abroad was heaven. Jesus. Fucking Christ. I turned off my app and cried my ass all the way home. One time I was driving a dude for a bit of a long trip. Was gonna take around 25 to 30 minutes. He wasn't hammered, but definitely a bit drunk. It was late and he must have been feeling a bit down, so he confided in me and asked me for some advice. He told me he's madly in love with his fiance's best friend and he couldn't back out now. He'd been with this girl for years, and engaged for one, ready to be married in a few months. It was pretty sad to hear, because it wasn't just your average story. It was filled with a lot of subtle emotional and mental anguish. The guy went through about 5 years of ups and downs with his girl, and found an innocent friend and comfort in the best friend. After a few years, he developed feelings and it was just downhill from there. Felt bad for the guy because he seemed like he was truly in love with his fiancée too, although he had strong feelings for this friend. He knew that going through with the marriage meant a lifetime of being around the friend and suppressing feelings, but also breaking it off meant that he lost the girl of his dreams. Seemed like a genuinely nice guy, and I hope he's doing okay. Uber passenger here, had a driver tell me he was changing his name to Nilrem, because it was Merlin spelled backward and he was a wizard. Picked up two dudes. They were talking about how they were going to keep hiding their relationship from their wives and children. Pretty messed up stuff. Drove Uber one night. It was pretty tame until I picked up two guys who wanted to go to a strip club 40 miles away. As they requested an Uber Select fare, I was happy to drive that far. $80 to $100, it took them 15 minutes to get ready and into the car and they seemed cool, so I wasn't worried. As soon as we got on the freeway, the guy in the passenger seat started asking about Uber driving and things got dark. After a few minutes he started saying shit like, what would you do if someone just grabbed the steering wheel and ran the car into the median, and have you ever thought about what would happen if someone in the back seat tried to strangle you while you were driving? I got a little freaked out and tried to lighten the mood by asking what they were celebrating, etc., but the one guy just kept at it. I was happy to get to the strip club and get them the hell out of the car. Bonus was the bouncer at the club gave me $40 for dropping them off there. I never drove Uber again. Fuck that. It wasn't so much weird as it was random, but my first night driving for Uber/Lyft, I picked up a dude at 2:30 a.m. that was finishing up a pub crawl. The dude was dressed in a purple dinosaur onesie and was hammered. He got in and started telling me his entire life story and how he came out to his parents and moved across the country the next day. I know this is the opposite of what you asked because I'm a passenger, not a driver. I had an Iraqi driver tell me he was an engineer in Iraq before the first Gulf War and he developed a superior means of gilding furniture, chandeliers, etc., which you can imagine was hot in pre-war Husseinville. Well, Uday wanted to go into business with him, but, and this is a direct quote, first Uday wants to be your partner in business, then he wants to be partner in your wife. Words to live by. Took this 19-year-old kid and what I assumed was his girlfriend back to her house on Pride weekend in SF. They made out the whole ride. When I dropped them off, only she got out. He said take me to Castro and 18th. I said really? And he said yeah, I only make out with girls when I'm rolling. Never a dull moment in San Francisco. I picked someone up here in Memphis and took them to a shady apartment. They came out smelling like some really good kush. I asked them to go back in and get me some. Got paid, got weed, and got a new dealer out of it. 2 girls talking about how they fucked the same guy. Both agreed his dick was too big and he was hurting them by lasting too long. Both concluded he was gay. 2 middle-aged couples trying to agree to a foursome. Once I had an extremely drunk middle-aged couple fight for an entire 30-minute ride. They attempted to bring me into their fight many times. I just pretended like I was deaf and didn't answer when they tried to rope me into it. Not so much secrets as they were things people don't normally say or do in front of strangers. Picked up a divorced father whose buddy paid for his Lyft ride to the bar. Why? Because he was supposed to see his kid that evening for an overnight, but the wife had the authority to dictate the terms of him seeing his own child no matter what, and she wasn't feeling it. Granted, I definitely got one side of the story, but it was fucking terrible to see a man who desperately wanted to spend time with his kid be completely blocked from it over bullshit. California had given dad so little rights, from how this guy described it, that even though he had a stable job, good house, and was willing to pay for a hotel so he and his son would stay in the town the mom lived in, it was a no-go. That was a tough one cause I was so powerless to help. Picked up a girl to take her straight from work to the hospital to see her dad. Her mom had called her work to make her end her shift early because it was serious. Her dad had cancer. I dropped her off and was like, God, I hate this job cause I'll never know how her night ended. Wrong. Next night, I'm taking people home from bars and her 2 guy friends took her out to get wasted cause her dad had died. They were being drunk idiots, so when I took them to get pizza, she came outside and we talked about it a little. That was probably the one ride where I felt I had a positive impact on someone's life beyond getting them home safely. I was taking 2 couples home. Dropped off couple number 1 and the husband of couple number 2 was in the front seat and made a comment I didn't hear. Apparently he insulted the wife of couple number 1, his wife's BFF. The wife in couple number 2 didn't like that, so she hit him. Not like a playful slap, she struck her husband. Straight on domestic violence. I laid down the law, we're not going anywhere this is how it's gonna be. The dude was drunk on tequila, chick was drunk too, so the ride home was him asking me how would you feel? And me saying it's not about how I feel, you two need to discuss this tomorrow when you're sober. It's weird, man. You get a passing glimpse into people's lives and loved it and hated it at the same time. My friend tubers in my hometown. Picked up some really nice girls out on first Friday. They're talking about their plans for next autumn. Guy thinks he recognizes one of them, turns out to be my younger sister, and he tells me all about it. And that's how I found out my little sister was moving to Spain. I haven't really heard anything too juicy, but so far my favorite was this one. I picked up 2 guys in downtown LA. From their conversation I gathered they just met at the bar I picked them up from and were going home to hook up. One was younger and clean cut, the other was older and rather scruffy. So I'm driving up Main Street to the 101 and the scruffy guy starts talking about how he used to live there in the 90s and it was a whole lot scummier back then. He mentions he used to have an older boyfriend back then. The boyfriend would call the scruffy guy and tell him to walk down to the sidewalk in a tight-off shirt and Daisy Dukes. Then the boyfriend would drive up in his car and the scruffy guy would lean in his window and the boyfriend would ask him how much, and the scruffy guy would get in and they'd role-play that he was a prostitute and the boyfriend was his John. The clean-cut guy kinda glossed over this and moved the conversation along, but I thought to myself that scenario sounds hot as hell. Picked up a girl mid-Saturday. She was a bit upset and a little teary and opened up to me. Turned out a business she had started was failing and she was in debt and had turned to stripping on the side to cover the bills. She said the pay was good but she kept getting really sick from all the booze she felt obliged to drink. Part of her job was making guys spend money at the bar. She hated it and felt trapped and kept asking me what I would do in her situation. I'm a guy, so kind of hard for me to answer. Tried to give her the best advice I could think of, like getting the tax office to withhold tax for a while, but couldn't help really. Only thing I could do was end the trip early. Other one was a couple of off-duty cops who didn't want their friends to know they were using it. Uber is still in a legal gray area here. Lyft driver here. Had a guy talk about going down on a stripper while I was taking him and his buddies to a strip club. I drove a lot of college-aged girls that were looking for / had a sugar daddy. They wanted 30-year-old men, no children, good job, willing to buy them lots of things / pay rent, bills. I had no idea this was so popular, but practically every girl that age that opened her mouth about a guy in my car went on about his age, job, and money. One girl even admitted to fucking someone with the same name and of the same age as her dad.